Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self-harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not in. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, and for you freaky motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. On today's episode, I am blessed to have the beautiful Lori with me as we discuss labels. Lori, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me again. Love to hit on here.
It's a pleasure to have you with us because you're a beautiful spirit. You just give good advice, and it's been very great and encouraging conversation. So look, the pleasure's all mine. You're honoring this platform, so I love it.
So sweet. Thank you.
So, I know we talked about it. Well, this episode in itself is like going to be out later this year. I think we're looking at August, I think, or might be September. I'm fortunate enough to be in a space right now that most of season 2 is already done. And I feel great about that. I just don't need to
Congrats.
organize. Thank you. Like, I remember around this time last year stressing myself out so much trying to get everything out and make sure I can get things like episodes to fit the aesthetic of the podcast.
Yeah.
And it was extremely stressful. But here, being in a space where the first episode releases next week, no, in 2 weeks, and I'm almost done. And it's like just reflecting on the year, it's just like, oh my, look what growth can do. Look what proper preparation can do. And,
Look at you saying what you want and manifesting that, that's awesome.
right.
You struggled at first, but you got yourself into a groove. You didn't give up.
Mm,
And that is something to say about your character. That's great.
exactly. Exactly. Like it feels good to be in this space. And I know yourself and Wes have y'all's podcast coming out soon. Well, it'll be out by the time this airs.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
What's going on over there? What kind of conversations should the audience be listening out for? And they probably should be following by this point because come on, this is like your third episode of the podcast. Wes has been on this podcast. If you're not listening to her podcast, their podcast right now, what are you doing? Support.
Yeah, where are you? Come join me. Like
Right.
conversations with Wes and other queer folk. We're giving a space that deals with queer issues, but also queer successes. And we're giving a space that encourages people to share their stories. And it's called These Queer Stories. We just love talking in general about all of the fun and wonderful things that it can happen when you align yourself with your truth and you build healthy relationships and you allow yourself to be yourself, and the growth and fun and fulfillment that can happen in that space. So we're giving voice to all of that. We're giving voice to those who walk to the beat of their own drum, to those who just love being themselves no matter what others think, or those who desire to feel that and are looking for some place where they can hear success stories, hear advice, hear how coaching can help in that, because Wes and I are both uh, life coaches. I'm a holistic life coach, and Wes is as well. He does relationships, he does intimacy. He works with people who are in the BDSM community. And myself, I love working with parents and couples as well, but I focus a lot more on the individual who is looking to do that inner work to hear their own voice and pull that out and feel aligned with their truth. And I love helping parents with their children that are looking to for that as well, getting the parents and the kids to be aligned all together to help the child have raised their voice and be able to walk in the shoes that they want to walk in. So these Queer Stories podcast is just a reflection of that. It's a space full of us to come together and honor and celebrate the courage that it takes and the excitement that it is when you enjoy walking in your own shoes and living the life that you desire.
It sounds so beautiful. If you're not
Oh,
listening to it, go over there and like just living in your truth. I'm so glad that you even mentioned that because there is so much beauty in that. And I really do I don't want to say pity because it's not necessarily pity. I have a deep sorrow for a lot of people who are unable to do so. And be it just because of for them not being comfortable with themselves, and regardless of being on the queer spectrum or not, like even those people who may be heterosexual and still not living true to themselves,
yes.
uh, it just saddens me because there's so much beauty in us. Like rather than trying to fit a mold, build yourself into whatever shape that you want it to be, like wherever you want your life to be, and live free and be happy in it. And just to see so many people just refuse to do that because, like, I get that we do compare ourselves to other people on a regular basis and we do seek validation. But when you have that self-validation and that self-freedom and that joy within the things that you do, that genuine pleasure in what you're doing, things click a lot differently. Things
Yeah.
feel differently. It's like, yeah, I do sometimes look for that validation in others, but I've already validated myself. So if I don't see it, I still feel comfortable. I still feel happy with myself. Like just recently, I had a photo shoot, and the person who did it, she sent me the photos, and I loved them and I enjoyed them, and it was
Yay.
beautiful. And I shared it with some of my friends, not that if they don't like it, I'm going to feel some type of way, but I'm not looking for them to enjoy it. I'm sharing a part of my experience with them for them to engage in that in a whatever way they want to. And it wasn't I noticed that I wasn't one of those situations where I wanted them to like it, that I wanted them to react to it a certain way. It was just, hey, this is something that I've done. And many of them appreciate it. But there was also some people who seen some of the clips that didn't respond to it, and I was okay with it. And I wasn't looking for that. It's just, I did the thing, right?
Yeah, that's neat that you brought that up. Like some people will share photos and they're watching for the like button and
Mhm.
they're counting the likes and they're saying to themselves, I didn't get this number of likes, I'm not worthy.
Mhm.
And that concept shouldn't be validating your worth, whether someone clicks the like button or into discusses anything about what you posted. They're waiting for that does not need to say you are worthy. The finding that from within and doing posting something or sharing something with friends and family or the public, coming from a place where you know your worth already, but you want to share in your excitement and just have those people that you care about standing in that excitement with you, whether or not that they like it or not doesn't matter because you already found that from within. That's a lot of personal growth and self-awareness and um, great self-esteem that I hope I could help people find from within through coaching. That's really important for finding your life's fulfillment and your your happiness in general with
Mm,
with everything that you have within from within, aligning and getting that love for yourself from yourself.
mm-hmm. Oh, I just feel warm.
Ah,
Right?
yeah.
Um, well, after this beautiful moment, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this episode. We are to talk about labels. And I know one of the things we did discuss, and we didn't go in great details about it because we were just like, we'll save the majority of that for the actual episode. But it was just the discussion about the benefits and the negative aspects of having labels. And I know one of the things that I personally dislike for having labels is when we use them to box people in and be like, this is the full identity, and you must be this certain character. You must act and behave in this way according to this said label, rather than just, oh, okay, this is a subsect of my life, and I'm using this to identify as, but this is not all that I am. And the benefit within that of using the labels is just like, hey, this is an aspect of me, but it's not the full me. Like, I can be black, I can be queer, I can be a dancer, artist, and all these other things. Each one of those are different types of labels that I ascribe to myself, but it doesn't make up the full me. So what benefits and negative aspects do you see in labels?
To label or not to label? That is the question, right?
Right.
Oh, things that pop in my head and I have to say out loud.
I support it.
Uh, well, I remember having this discussion with one of my support groups, and this is actually a big focus for one of my group coaching events that's coming up. It'll be long gone by the time this airs, but I'll be having it in cycles. It'll be like running for every 6 months, and that's the self-identification or coming into your authentic self. And in order to do that, sure, we kind of need labels. We need to be able to have the language to be able to say, this is who I am, this is what I'm all about. But like you had said, the other uh, flip of the coin, the other side of that would be, am I only defined by this? Am I only sitting inside this label in this box and I can't ever step outside of it once I say it out loud? Or I can't ever change it once I say it out loud? Or my experience can't be anything else other than this. And that's where people start to push against using a label. They're like, well, I don't want to be defined in this little section of this big category. Um, a lot with the LGBTQ community, we have lots of language forming now for all different ways of identifying. There's got to be hundreds of words that people are using as their label. They're creating um, lots of pride items around that label to show this is me, and I want you to know this is me. I'm not on this path, and taking great pride in that and having the language for that. And that's a beautiful thing too, being able to know who you are and have a way of showing the world that you can do that when you have the language for it. But then if you're somebody who wants to flow between things and doesn't want to be defined in that way, you don't have to use a label. You don't have to say I am this. You can be more broader categoried when you describe yourself. I am someone who loves people. I am somebody who is fluid in the way I am, and to use describing words instead of category words for yourself. So I hope that people will have some compassion for themselves if they don't feel like they have the right word to describe themselves. They have to have that word to describe themselves. You don't. You really don't. You can just sit in your human experience and explain it however you want to be in that moment, and that's okay too. I mean, gender and sexuality is fluid. So all the terms that have come for that, helps people find where they are on that spectrum. And it also
Mhm.
helps scientists with like describing what they're studying and helping people explain themselves when they're going to be in an experiment or be in a survey. And a lot of those labels did stem from that, but they're not the end all be all of what you
Mhm.
are. They're a spot in that moment in time on where you are in your identity in that moment in time. And you can change how you explain that or change um, how you express that as you grow into yourself.
The Holiloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Holiloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Holiloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation.
Are in your identity in that moment in time, and you can change how you explain that or change um, how you express that as you grow into yourself.
Mm.
So compassion for how you express it is, I think, really important to have for yourself because it doesn't have to be one way or another.
And something that triggered in my head was some of the conversations I'm seeing in social media because there's a lot of things going on with trans rights and
Mm.
individuals being very anti-trans these days. And when I see these conversations of many women in particular who dislike I've seen some men, but not too many, but who dislike the term cis women. And I do get the perspective. I do understand where they're coming from in terms of don't call me a cis woman if I've been a woman that my entire life. But even within that same phrasing, I think of, but that's exactly the same thing in that terminology of cis women. And I think about how we don't take that time just to educate each other about what these things mean. Like, I understand the automatic trigger of I'm not cis. I don't get what you're saying here. Like, I'm not that. I'm a woman, that which is what I've been. And not understanding that, hey, I get that. That's fine. But all cis means is that when you've been female assigned at birth, and that is what you identify as. It's just meaning the same genders, and that's it. And you don't have to ascribe to that term, but in these spaces, just know that you're still being seen. It's just that the vocabulary that's being used is not necessarily what you're used to, and that is okay. And we use this cis woman to identify those assigned, you know, female at birth, and to distinguish between those women who may have been assigned male at birth. And that's why we have cis women, cis men, trans men, just so that we can have a way that whenever we do our research or whenever we talk about certain communities, that we are speaking on the actual beings within that and not being too broad that we overlook everyone. And I think because we do not have those conversations, we have a lot more issues in trying to get people to see each other as in a respectful way.
Yeah, you're kind of hitting on the topic of normalizing,
Hmm.
right? Normalizing this language, normalizing these experiences, and understanding the purposes behind them so people can have some empathy when they're walking into these spaces where there might be a variety of different types of identities that you're going to be encountering. And then when you're going to explain yourself, and where your worldview is from, having the language to say, well, this is coming from my perspective as a cis gendered person who is also heterosexual. Now, myself, I'm non-binary. I could also describe myself as gender fluid. Um, I can describe myself as assigned female at birth, and somewhere on the gender spectrum and how I present myself or how I identify with my gender role in society. I can flow between all of them. And if I was to walk into a space where it's primarily cis women, I might actually blend in quite a bit and not have the chance to express what my point of view is from or who I am, as they're all coming from their cis perspective in the conversation, in the environment, in the way that things are being presented in there. And if they don't come out and start saying, "Hi, I am so and so, my pronouns are she, her," and oh yeah, I understand. I mean, I'm a cis woman, so I totally get where you're coming from with that. If they don't say things like that, then I don't know if it's safe for me to come out and say, "Oh, I'm gender fluid and I'd prefer you use my pronouns as they, them, but it's all right if you use she, her for a while. I won't be upset, but can you try?" And so for me to feel safe to be able to give my perspective in that space, it's really nice when somebody else who is of the majority in that particular space starts that conversation for myself, who might not be the majority in that particular space.
Mm.
So, and what I'm trying to get at is that if we start coming from that point of view, like, well, I'm in this space where most people are like me. Do I really need to say cis woman? Do I really need to say cis man? Is that necessary? What if one of them seems that way and they're trying to be able to have that time to come out or
Mhm.
have that chance to be heard or seen? Come at it from that point of view. You might feel like you're helping and doing a service and giving a safe space to the voices who aren't able to speak up right away. Yeah, conversations are definitely needed in those environments, and education is definitely needed in a lot of these spaces for that to happen.
Mm. See, you opened my mind a little bit because I wasn't thinking about how that does create, like, just introducing things with like your pronouns and just a generalized way can provide and open the door for a safe space for somebody. So that's something I have to be mindful of for myself, actually, because even on a previous episode of the show, I was talking to someone about I remember this commercial where there was this trans woman as well as this cisgender man doing an interview, and the hiring dude, he just was like, "Hello, my name is this, my pronouns this, that, and the third," and then the trans woman identified herself with her pronouns, and for me, I understood the intent of the commercial and loved that. But at the same time, I was thinking about, in a real life situation, is that something that you'll see? And
Mhm.
also, did this person do this because this person seemed as though that they may have been trans? Because if it was somebody who did not seem as though they may be trans, will this still be something that a person will be practicing? So it was just like, is this a space where, like, because you don't know how a person will take something. So
Right.
if I introduce this, and introduce my pronouns, and of course they do feel safe, but in to them, is it a conversation or a self conversation of, was I just clocked
Yeah.
in this interview? And because I was clocked, does that mean that this is going to impact me? So it's very weird. It's very interesting how the pronoun and creation of safe space can be both a good and bad thing, depending on who you are speaking with. So That's going to be something I have to contemplate over.
Well, I think that's why it's important for the people in the room to just that are in these interactions just to start creating that conversation and normalizing that's the language in that way so that we don't have these am I saying this because they look a certain way and am I going to make them feel bad by saying something that is me thinking that they're one way, but they're not. When the mindset should actually be, this is what we do to make people feel heard and welcomed and included in the conversation and to make sure that everybody's language is not going to be biased and everybody's language is going to be used in a way that is going to make people feel comfortable and make people give people a chance to have the right pronouns out of respect be used.
Hmm.
There's people who are not easily identifiable just from the way they're presenting themselves that can be hurt if we don't give the chance for them to speak. But aside from that, just in general, just respecting some people have their legal name on a document and they don't want to be called by the legal name. They'd rather be called by a nickname or their middle name. And you won't know until you introduce yourself.
Hmm.
So when you're introducing yourself, you're saying, "Hi, my name is such and such. I go by, and my pronouns are, and I really would love to know yours." And in that matter of fact, general, comfortable conversational tone, the other person can share whatever it is they want to have said and heard.
Hmm.
And it will be just as normal as giving your nickname out and just as normal as introducing a friend when you do it that way.
Gotcha. So essentially, we just have to get over this hump first, and then it
Oh,
would be
totally.
easier. Because
Yeah, it's the transitional stage.
yeah, like I think about like the difference between different cultures and how we engage in introducing each other.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I was watching something. I need to find that show again because it's amazing. It was I just on YouTube and just found, I think I was on YouTube and just found people having conversations about being black in Japan and just to hear how they were speaking in English, and so I could understand a lot better. Even though the person who was doing it, he went in and out of Japanese, and I it was great. I loved it, but it was a great way to provide. Okay, I'm going too far into the YouTube video. I need to stay on topic. So, in that, they were talking about this is me challenging my ADHD while recording live.
Good job.
Right. So while he was recording and they were introducing each other, they spoke on that difference because it's more of a, hey, my name is this is the job I work, like I work in this type of field, versus here in the US, you may come across people just like, hey, my name is this, and that's about it. Or how are you doing? It's a different way that we introduce ourselves here versus
Yeah.
other cultures, and I think with well, over time, we will definitely get to that place where we do meet new people. Will reveal a little bit more about ourselves than because I think because the U.S. is in a broad spectrum a very unsafe space
Yes.
to communicate and honestly just live, but it's a very unsafe
hmm
space to have conversations with people. You never know who you'll offend just by saying my pronouns, or if you say something that they're not ready to hear. So, because it's so unsafe, we are very individualized. So, introducing ourselves to a new person becomes, am I safe with this person? I don't have a safe space with this person. So, let's keep this as distance as possible so I can give them my name, but I'm not going any further. I have to build that connection with you over time before you learn, oh, this is my pronouns, or this is the type of work that I'm into. Because even when I've engaged with people on dating apps, there's so many people who are very protective of just like just revealing the field of work that they're working in. And
Oh,
I'm just
yeah.
like, That's a category. I'm not asking for the location or anything like that. You can say education, in their
Yeah.
psychology, whatever the case is. It's something a lot more broad and not, hey, do you work at Walmart? Do you work at Chick-fil-A? Do you work in this specific location? No, I'm not asking that. I'm just asking for, what type of work you do.
Yeah, you see, definitely in certain um, groups. So if you're looking at it from a social psychology or anthropological sort of like viewpoint, you'll see little mini subcultures. So you might have a small pocket of the queer community that's right on top of that with the, hey, here's who I am. Please use these pronouns, and then continuing on the conversation because they know it's that's a safe group that they're in. And then you might have some family friend groups where it's someone else, a friend might be introducing them and using and explaining their pronouns as they're talking. And they might have like a work environment group where you have a few people here that you feel safe talking to, and then you have a group of new people that you're encountering and you don't know yet if you saying your pronouns first, like my pronouns are he, him, but I don't like look like I align with a he, him according to the mainstream culture, or my pronouns are they, them, and people are making fun of they, them pronouns because it doesn't seem proper English. And that is not a very safe space then to be the first person as the trans or as the queer or as the non-cis identifying person to just come out with pronouns that don't look like they belong to you right off the bat. I could see how that could be a very difficult thing to just come out and say. But that's why I feel like encouraging the leader in these groups or the person who sets the tone for that space to be the first person to say, this is a space that we're all going to be able to be ourselves in, and there will not be any judgments whatsoever from anybody. If you have any trouble with anyone in this room, please speak to me privately and we will work it out. My name is, my pronouns are, and I will respect your pronouns and continuing on with the conversation. Now, if that's not possible, like you don't have a working relationship with the leader of the group, like in a work environment, or the host of the party, or the person that is the well-known person in that group that kind of like is the person that goes between everybody and knows a lot of the people there. If you don't have a good relationship with them, you don't have to. Absolutely. You do not have to say anything that you feel is going to put yourself at risk.
Mm,
Establishing that you're in a safe space is super important. And so you have the right to consent or not consent to yourself being outed. And that might mean that you're not saying anything or
mm,
you're changing your pronouns for that space in that moment because you want to keep your safety there, and doing some self-care work later on because that is some seriously psychologically difficult stuff to deal with.
mhm,
Not align, like having a mask and having to hide and not align yourself with who you are in that space. So I've recommended to people like, yeah, you're still trying to get the tone of the room. Have some conversations. Don't say your pronouns unless someone else does. And if you feel like you're ready and that person's talking and introducing you to someone else, you're like, oh, well, actually, my name is, I like to go by. Can you please just, do you mind just using the pronouns she, her, he, him? I really appreciate that. It helps me feel included in this space,
mm.
and then bringing it up more casually as the conversation goes on with people you're comfortable with as you establish a safe space.
Yes. And I'm a firm believer for those people who just cannot respect another person's pronouns and just call people by their names. Like if it's
Yeah,
so hard to utilize a pronoun, just call them by their names. And I don't get why we as a society make this so hard. We've been using pronouns all of our lives, and pronouns is just a replacement for a noun. That's it. If you don't know a person's name, you can say he, she, they. If you do know their name, you can say their name. That's all it is. ask them what their name is and go with it. And I know, like for myself, because of the neutral pronouns, they're hard for me to remember because there's thousands of them. I'm joking, there's like 20. But because those are hard for me, that means I can do my best to utilize Zer and whatnot, but I'll prefer to just call the person by their names because that's a little bit easier. And it's still acknowledging that they exist, and that as far as I'm concerned, as well as themselves, I'm respecting them the best way that I can respect them and hope that they feel that respect in the same way. It's yeah, in the conversation, it may add extra syllables. Most definitely, if they have multiple syllables in their name, but that's okay. I'm still acknowledging them as that person, as who they are, and I just don't get why we make it such a huge deal.
I I I have trouble understanding why it's a huge deal as well. My guess is that it's really people really understand that it's not that big of a deal, but they're more worried about making the mistake and
Mm,
looking bad. And or they're coming from the standpoint that these trans and non-binary identities, anything that does not align with their chromosomes at birth is false news or something, fake news or something ridiculous like that because of ignorance. Um, I try to help people by giving them resources to practice. So there are websites that you can use to help yourself rehearse and practice various types of pronouns for the ones that are the more new age or that people are creating to help themselves stand out differently from the binary, which is what the Z's there and the ones that are similar to that are. My use of the pronouns they, them is for that reason. I don't feel comfortable being looked at in the gender role as a cis woman or even a cis man. I don't like fitting in with society's view of what a cis woman, cis man need to actually look like. And I find myself flowing so much between them that hearing they, them helps me show the world you can't see me in this box.
mm,
So going back to the labels, going back to identity, pronouns are part of that. They're helping people show the world that they are presenting in their mind, in their soul, and maybe in their physical expression differently, or in a certain way that they want everybody to know and to respect that.
mm.
So if somebody is using they, them when they're referring to me, it helps me not feel confined to a certain expectation. Does that
So,
make sense?
oh, it makes perfect sense to me. If those who are listening, if it does not make sense to you all, reach out. But it does make plenty of sense to me because it's less what I'm getting from that is they them provides you a level of comfort that he she does not. That it lets you know, lets others know as well as yourself, under you know, in receiving that I'm not in a category. I'm in a category of my own, that I am not within a certain fixed role in society, that I'm building something outside of that, that I identify and live my life in a way that does not fit that category of he, she. I just fit in something that is a little bit more individualized. And
Yeah.
hearing that they, them means that you see
Yeah.
me for myself.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes I'll have um, people that come up to me and say, sir, and that's a very gendered term on the more masculine presenting side. And sometimes that feels good because it's so opposite of how I physically present on the usual, you know? And so it makes me feel like I'm waving between boxes in that moment. But overall, if someone was to say ma'am or miss or Mr. or he or she, most of the time I'm like, oh, they're telling me that I need to be a certain way.
Mm,
And I don't want them to see that. I don't want them to think that about me. I'm not a certain way. I'm non-conforming. And in the past and historically, uh, you might find a butch lesbian would be more of like how I present myself at times, or a non-conforming gendered person in the past. And in the past, their language wasn't quite starting to become as mainstream as it is. These discussions were not really there yet with gender. It was more around sexuality. And so people would say, "Oh, that's just a gay,"
mm,
instead of like, "That's this person is gender non-conforming," or "This person does not fit the cis woman or cis male presentation. This person's not going to be expected to be in this gender role. They're just going to be like, that's a queer, that's a weird gay person over there. I don't know what they're doing with their life," you know, and have these very stigmatized and very stereotyped language and conversations. And by using these new pronouns and new labels, we're pushing away from all that stigmatized language of the past. So there, the other side of that argument, and the reason why I'm bringing up is that some people will be like, "Well, we never had this before. Where is all this coming from?" And I'd argue, well, actually, we did. We just didn't have the language yet for it, and we didn't have enough people in society ready to have these conversations and talk about it, um, and try and make an attempt to understand these differences,
mm. The growth
the
that
growth.
we've had, and I also have to say the regression too.
Yeah.
But like it's I do like that we are in a space where people are able to go beyond just being the queer in the room. It's the person who we're seeing people for who they are a lot more. And I will say that will always be the greatest thing about the progression of our society. It's just we don't visually see that as often because the wrongest people are often the loudest people,
Mm.
and they're the
Uh-huh.
ones that's getting all of the notice. Therefore, we're overseeing that. Oh,
Yeah.
there are so many people who actually do not ascribe to this type of behavior or this thought process, and because of that, the loudest voices make it seem as though this is the normal message of who we are and who we act or who we behave as, when that's not necessarily the case. Like even whenever I look at some of the political shows that I watch, they mention how so many people across the board have either just don't care in the sense that I'm not bothered by your existence, or they're affirming, meaning I want to support and advocate for you. There's a larger amount of people that fit in that category than what most people would think, because the wrong identities and whatnot have that loudest voice, or the wrong perspective or the negative skewed perspective have the loudest.
Yeah. The perspective that of the people who have not made the attempt to educate themselves, or have definitely the skewed thinking,
Mhm,
problems with the way they're processing and not empathizing with others. And that is so difficult. It's so important for people to be more politically active
mm,
if they want to have a say in how they're represented in the law, and how the culture around them is representing and respecting them.
mm.
So that's my little plea for get out and vote, or get out and join an advocacy group.
But really though, please do that. Please do that. This world's too crazy. Please. I'm begging you. I'm tired.
Oh,
Um, Before
well,
we go into
yeah.
the Never Have I Ever segment, I did want to ask you for some advice for someone
Oh,
who's out there who may be trapped in this box of a certain label, be it the traditional masculine or the traditional feminine. What is your advice on how they can unravel themselves outside of that box and embrace themselves regardless of the traditional roles?
have they already do they already understand who they want to be seen as? That's my first question for that person is if you haven't figured out how you have all or you want to be aligned and seen and presented and respected, you have to do some inner work first.
Mm,
So since I like to work a lot with gender and sexuality identities, and gender and sexuality is not just the LGBTQ section of the spectrum that I discussed on the show today and that I tend to highlight because it's so underrepresented, but also the masculine to feminine end of the spectrum as well. So the cis male, cis female, or feminine presenting and identifying person and masculine presenting and identifying person, that binary. I do work with that and the toxic masculinity and toxic femininity that goes along with that. So knowing first how you feel about yourself, where you want to align, how do you want people to both see, feel, understand, respect you in your gender and in your sexuality and in your identity in general. Who are you? You got a lot of inner work to do.
mm,
And there's various coaching methods that will help you reflect, help you pull out whatever is blocking you from understanding this, and kind of talking through and working through where deep down you where you are landing, how you feel about yourself, and what is holding you back from expressing that. And so once we've uncovered that and we know what our values are about ourselves, we know what our goals are about ourselves, we know where we want to go in this world and how we want to present ourselves in this world and how we want the world to see us in our identity. That's when we start setting those small baby steps to go in that direction,
mhm,
taking the little baby steps, trying something out, reflecting on it, moving forward the next baby step. Maybe you're ready for a leap, talking through it. We could be role playing, practicing the various scenarios that can come out with these aspects and kind of take that journey. There's a lot of positive psychology based methods that I use, but I'm also a holistic coach. So we'll hit on mindfulness, absolutely. We'll hit on some science-based, evidence-based methods, but we'll hit on some soul work. We'll hit on some um, experimenting, trying out various aspects of our body and mind and soul to align ourselves with whatever it is that will make us feel most fulfilled.
mm,
And so you're doing the work. I'm just reflecting that and mirroring that back to you, but you, as the person in my room, are doing the work. And to top it all off, there's a lot of science behind doing this in a community. So while I can be helping you one to one or another coach that you feel comfortable with, of course, I'm not, but I would love to work with you. Um, while I could help you one to one, you could be working with other people as well and coming back to me, and you can be working in a community because there's a lot of growth that could happen when you find people once you're aligned with who you are, and if you're still figuring that out, going and finding a group of people who are on that same journey as you really helps you escalate and push through and move forward towards that end goal that you have. So I have group coaching, I have support groups. I recommend that you go out and find some of that near you in person if it's possible. And the one-to-one deep dive that I do, those methods combined can really push you forward towards being your best self and presenting and feeling that you're walking in your truth through life, reaching your happiness.
mm. And you said what needed to be said. So for any person who needs that assistance, definitely reach out to Lori. Lori is a wealth of knowledge. They're
Mm,
amazing at what they do. If you need someone a little bit more local, definitely do that too. It is find your path to feeling fulfilled and feeling value within yourself. One of the things that I look for, because I've been a fan of Star Wars for like some time, And I always think about the different characters, different skin tones, different colors, different ways that they dress, how the alien look, I guess. I would love for Star Wars to be our reality. That I walk outside and I see someone who is into body painting and they just decided to wear whatever clothing they want to wear, but their skin is painted gold or their skin is painted green, blue, or whatever hue within the rainbow. And we're just all seeing that and just see it as being normal and embracing that, like, okay, blue skin, you looking gorgeous today. I love what you're doing. And just be happy and continue our lives. Now, this is not like we all know that this does not mean that everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows, of course, because life is life. We'll all still be dealing with our own um, struggles, our own traumas, and whatnot. But at least when we go out in public or whenever we come home, we feel validated or we feel respected and we feel that outside of these walls, I'm not going to be discriminated against just because I'm a little bit different. The things that I'm facing in my life is because of a stress at work, hardship, or anything like that, and not because of what you look like. And that will be the world that we all deserve and need.
That's beautiful. Truly beautiful.
Yeah.
There's something very sexy about a confident person that's just living their best life and not letting anyone else bother them. And I wish that for everybody.
Tell them, because oh my God,
Right?
walking your confidence is a beautiful thing.
It is. It is. It really is.
Well, on that note, let's get into a little bit of Never Have I Ever. You ready?
Fun times. Always with you, Vernon.
So, never have I ever had a sexual fantasy about an animated character.
I definitely have.
Now I need to know.
So fun.
See, I've had a few, and this is why, like, anime in itself will just have you going all kinds of places in your head. But I remember being a lot younger. I was on the computer, and the computer forever pulls up porn somehow. I don't know how that
The
happened.
magic machine.
It's a magic machine. How did this get here? And there was this clip of I think it was Goku, some other character in Vegeta, all doing like some threesome, and I was like, this is intriguing, like this.
You know, I don't go seeking it out, but every now and then something will pop up like that. I'd be like, that's hot.
Look,
That is hot. It's always the women. So it's always a very voluptuous woman of some kind. And some those conventions, I haven't gone to one, but there were pictures that were coming up for some people that I know that did go, and then you could see in the backgrounds everybody that's there. And
mhm,
somebody dressed up all hot in those skimpy little outfits that those anime girls wear was just so freaking hot. So
yeah,
hot.
love it.
Absolutely. It's fantasy world.
It is.
That's the whole point of it. It's just it's a fantasy. And embrace your fantasies. Let your sexuality go in those directions. It's healthy, it's fun. And if that gets you excited and you can help bring that energy to your lovers in person, how awesome is that?
Exactly. And I think I don't know, like I definitely need to like go to a conference, like an anime conference, because I would just be like so amazed for that reason. And
Yeah.
there was this, so I attended a SAR, and they were showing us media related to sexuality, sexual expression, all these other things. And there was this video, and I was never jealous of a 3D animation until that day. And it was a machine that it was a just a pleasure machine, I guess, that's main focus was ensuring that the young lady on the table received pleasure and met an orgasm. And it looks so much fun, and I was like, I would love to be on that damn table, but at the same time, that AI was on some other shit because I
I
was
am so intrigued. I want to explore that too.
it was amazing. I was like, oh my God.
We'll meet up. We'll go together. It'll be fun.
Right.
I'll be your wing person.
Right. We're here to meet this AI. Like, what's up?
Show me the way, baby.
Right. You ready for another one?
Absolutely.
Never have I ever had my nipples or genitals pierced.
No, I have not had them pierced. I've
Skin.
had my belly button pierced, my ears are pierced, but I I very rarely actually wear earrings. And when I do, it's
Mhm.
like the fun tassel stuff. And I don't know, it's just like I like nipple play, I like clip play. Like there's lots of fun things that you can do with that stuff, but I was worried that I would lose sensation because there's like that small percentage of people that can lose like their sensation that I was just like, no. I just moved on. Just moved on.
That's real. Like, I do not have any piercings. Now, I thought about it. I don't think I will ever go through with it because one, like for nipples, I already have very sensitive nipples, and I'm just like, I know it's going to hurt for some time, and I
Mm,
know I'll get my feeling back more than likely, but it's just that pain part of it. I don't want to
yeah.
deal with it. I don't want to have to walk around knowing that there's a shirt on my nipples and then there's a piercing there, and both of these
Hmm.
things are hitting each other right now, and I'm just like internally like, ouch, ouch, ouch. But other people looking at me like, you look very uncomfortable because I am. But I cannot tell you because it will be seen as unprofessional to let you know that I just recently got my fucking nipples pierced and I'm just leave me alone right now, okay? That's why I'm agitated. Shut
Like
up.
I'm always very sensitive to begin with, and there are days where like clothing just will like rub against me and turn me on. So I don't need any extra help with that.
Oh my God. Like, oh, Jesus. I don't, I'm good. I'm
I
great right
mean,
now.
power to the people who wanted to get it done, were excited to get it done, and then followed through and had success stories because it is very hot to see it on other people. But I, for myself,
Agreed.
just am good with my goods not having holes in them. So I'm okay.
But I do need to get my ears pierced because there's so many looks that I be wanting to pull off. And I'm just like, I need earrings with this. And then I'm
You
like,
would rock it. I hope you do.
right, like I'm like, there, I cannot find the clip-on version of this. And
And
guess I need to
clip-ons, I think, are painful, honestly. I've tried wearing clip-on stuff and I'm just like, ouch, that's too strong. I'm okay.
like my only thing is like with because the ones I see online are beautiful, but I also in the back of my head like what kind of metal are they using? Because I do not want
Yeah.
to break out.
Yeah, yeah. That makes
But
sense.
outside of that, I'm just like very open to doing it. So I need to do that soon so I can
Do
like
it.
start
Do it
pulling
and send
some
me
looks together.
pictures.
I got you.
I want pictures.
I definitely got you.
Yes.
On that note, do you have any last words that you would like to share with the audience before I end everything?
Oh, be brave. Be brave, be courageous, take those first steps in whatever you've been contemplating and seek help if you are overwhelmed. Seek a therapist if you're feeling you're depressed and you're feeling unsafe or in an unsafe situation. And seek a life coach if you're ready to move forward and you're going to work on things in the present, uncovering blocks that you have and dealing with your world moving forward to achieving fulfillment. I really hope that I can be part of that journey for you. So if you want to go to lauriesweetman.com or includelgbtq.com, you'll be able to see all that I have to offer, the group coaching, individual coaching, some free workshops, um, organizational training if there's any problems with diversity, inclusion practices, or unconscious bias issues at your workplace. I can train and help people create a safe space for you there as well. There's a lot to be offered out there. So don't let anything stop you. You are worthy and you are allowed to live the life you want to live. Take those steps that you need and seek us. Vernon's amazing. I'm amazing. Got a big team of amazing people here. Come say hi, reach out.
Facts. On that note, Lori, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I love you so dearly.
Oh, I love you too.
To the audience out there, thank you all so much for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. And just in case no one else told you this today, you are beautiful, you are worthy of happiness and joy, you are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.holiloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.